I've never been the loud one in the room. Never the guy who walks in and makes everyone stop what they're doing just to look. I'm more of a background presence, the kind of person people might describe as quiet or keeps to himself. And honestly, they wouldn't be wrong. I work from home, don't go out much, and find comfort in routines. I like the stillness most of the time. But then Justin moved in next door, and suddenly, stillness felt a little too loud. It started with the moving truck. I remember peeking through the blinds, watching him haul a couch out of the back like it weighed nothing. He had that easy confidence some people just seem to be born with. Baseball cap turned backward, slight smirk on his face, arms flexing as he lifted box after box. I watched longer than I should have. At first, I told myself it was just curiosity, just neighborly interest. But deep down, I knew better. Over the months, I've seen more of Justin than I probably should admit. He spends a lot of time outside, especially on the weekends, fixing things, washing his truck, tinkering with tools I don't even recognize. Always shirtless in the summer heat, always glistening just enough to look like a scene from a commercial. And he's friendly. That's the part that really gets me. He waves every time he sees me. Sometimes he throws in a, "Hey man," or "Everything good?" in that laid-back tone of his. Once he offered to help carry in my groceries. Another time, he knocked on my door just to return a package that was mistakenly dropped at his place. He even remembered my name. That stuck with me longer than it should have. We've never had a full conversation, though. Just smiles, nods, a few lines here and there. I always want to say more, to ask something, anything. But the words never quite leave my mouth. Not when he's standing there with those sun-kissed arms and that casual grin, looking like he belongs in a different world than mine. I've spent more time than I care to admit watching him from my window. Not in a creepy way, at least I hope not. But just observing. Wondering what he's thinking about when he lies on his porch swing with a drink in hand. Wondering who he texts when he laughs at his phone. Wondering if he knows how magnetic he is. And the thing is, I know, or at least I think I know, that he's straight. He's had a few girls over, always friendly, always laughing. They don't stay long, and I try not to read into it, but still. It's enough to keep my feelings tucked safely away where they belong, inside my chest, never spoken aloud. Sometimes I imagine different scenarios, ones where I'm a little braver, where I say something clever that makes him laugh, where he lingers a little longer, just enough to hint that maybe he's wondering too. But that's all they are, little daydreams that vanish as soon as I blink, so I stay quiet. I watch from a distance, and I tell myself that's enough. But lately, I'm not so sure it is. It happened around 11:30 on a Thursday night, one of those quiet, breezy evenings when the whole neighborhood feels asleep, and the world feels like it's holding its breath. I'd stepped out to take the trash to the curb, just for a moment. No keys, no phone. Just barefoot, half awake, and humming to myself in the dark. I heard the door click behind me, but it didn't register until I turned around and tried the handle. Locked. I stood there for a full minute, blinking like maybe, if I stared long enough, the door would change its mind. It didn't. I checked the window. Shut tight. Back door? Also locked. My phone, of course, was on the kitchen counter, smugly glowing with notifications I couldn't reach. For a moment, I considered sleeping on the porch like a forgotten cat. But then there was Justin. The idea of knocking on his door felt mortifying. I looked down at myself. An old t-shirt, boxers, and no shoes. I looked like a kid who got left behind on a school trip. But what were my options? Camp under the stars or swallow my pride? I swallowed. The knock felt louder than I intended. A few seconds passed before I heard footsteps, and the soft click of a lock turning. Justin opened the door, rubbing one eye with the back of his hand. His hair was messy, a plain white tee hanging loose over gray joggers, and he blinked like he hadn't quite processed me standing there. "Hey, everything okay?" I cleared my throat, trying not to shift too awkwardly. I kind of locked myself out. And my phone's dead. For a second, he just stared. Then his lips curved into a sleepy smile. "Man, that sucks." "Yeah," I said, voice small. "I'm a genius." He chuckled and leaned against the doorframe. You need help getting back in? If it's not too much trouble. Not at all. Let me grab a flashlight. Moments later, we were outside my place. He'd grabbed a small stepladder from his garage, and I showed him the window. Over my kitchen sink, the one I usually kept shut but, thankfully, had cracked open earlier that afternoon. I'll climb, I offered quickly. Justin shrugged, holding the ladder steady with both hands. Your house, your rules. As I climbed, I could feel the fabric of my t-shirt riding up, and my heart thudded in embarrassment. The silence behind me made me hyper-aware of every movement. When I reached the sill, I risked a glance down. Justin wasn't looking away. I slipped inside with as much grace as possible and hurried to unlock the front door. When I opened it, he was still there, flashlight dangling from one hand. Thanks, I said, suddenly unsure what to do with my own hands. Seriously, I owe you. He smiled. No problem. There was a pause. Something hung there, not heavy, but present. You want a beer? I asked, voice softer than I intended. Justin tilted his head, like he was sizing up the offer, then he nodded. Yeah, sure. And just like that, he stepped inside. The beer was cold, the silence warmer. We sat on the couch, barely a foot between us, but it felt like an entire ocean. Justin held the bottle loosely in one hand, resting it on his knee, his gaze drifting around my living room like he'd never really looked before. Like maybe tonight, everything looked different. I was hyper-aware of myself, the hem of my shirt, the way my knee was angled toward him, the fact that we were alone, this late, with no one expecting anything from either of us. He took a sip, then glanced at me. Not with the casual friendliness I was used to. This look felt quieter, focused, like he was seeing something he hadn't before. What? I asked, trying to laugh it off, but my voice cracked at the edges. He didn't answer, right away, just gave a small smile and leaned back, his eyes never leaving mine. Then, just as I was about to look away, he said it. You watch me sometimes, don't you? My heart stopped. The air left the room. My breath caught somewhere between shock and sheer panic. I started, then immediately regretted opening my mouth. He didn't look angry or smug, just curious, calm. His head tilted slightly, his expression unreadable. I stared down at my bottle like it could save me. I mean, I've seen you around like everyone does. You're hard to miss. Yeah, he said quietly. But you... Watch. It wasn't a question. It wasn't even accusing, just a truth laid bare. I felt the heat rise up my neck, my ears burning. I couldn't look at him. I didn't mean anything by it, I said, barely above a whisper. You're nice to look at, I guess. That's all. A pause. The longest pause of my life. Then I felt the couch shift. I looked up, and Justin was closer. Not enough to touch, but close enough that I could feel the change in the air, like something electric had slipped into the room. He leaned in, not fast, not sudden. Just slow, certain. I should have pulled back. Said something. Made a joke. Anything. But I didn't. His lips brushed mine. Soft, searching, and unexpectedly careful. The kiss wasn't rushed. It didn't explode like fireworks. It unfolded, slow and tender, like he was asking a question with his mouth and waiting to see if I'd answer. I did. I kissed him back, hesitant at first, then deeper, like I'd been holding my breath for months and had finally remembered how to breathe again. His hand found mine, fingers grazing lightly, like he didn't want to startle me. And somehow, that touch, that small, unassuming touch, felt more intimate than the kiss itself. We pulled apart slowly. No words, just the sound of both of us breathing, fast and shallow, like we'd run a mile without moving an inch. I looked at him, trying to make sense of it, of him, of what just happened. He looked back like he was wondering the same thing. There was a vulnerability in his eyes I hadn't seen before. A softness beneath the strength, something careful and maybe even a little scared. It mirrored how I felt, like we just crossed a line we couldn't uncross, and neither of us was sure what came next. He didn't try to explain, and I didn't ask. He leaned back, resting his head against the couch cushion. I did the same. We sat there in the quiet, side by side, our hands still touching. Nothing about it made sense. But I didn't regret it. Not one bit. After that night, something changed, not in an obvious world-shifting kind of way. There were no grand declarations, no dramatic confessions, just more of Justin. He started showing up at my door. Always late, always casual. Sometimes it was with a half-eaten sandwich and a sleepy grin. Other times it was just him, standing in the hallway like he didn't quite know why he came, only that he had to. I never asked. I just let him in. We didn't always talk. Sometimes we just watched movies with the volume too low or sat on the floor playing old card games I found in the back of a drawer. Once, he fell asleep on my couch while I was making tea. I covered him with a blanket and stood there for a moment, just watching him breathe, wondering what this was turning into. There was a rhythm to it. A quiet, stolen rhythm. He'd lean against the kitchen counter while I made coffee, stealing glances when he thought I wasn't looking. His fingers would graze mine when I passed him a mug. A brush of knees under the table. A slow smile held a beat too long. Some nights, his hand would find mine in the dark. No words. Just the warmth of his skin against mine like a silent apology for all the things he couldn't say. I was falling. Quietly. Quickly. But the closer we got, the more I felt something else building. Too, something I didn't know how to name. It sat between us like a secret he couldn't quite put down. Once, while we were curled up on the couch, my head resting on his shoulder, I asked him softly, "Does anyone know?" He stiffened just slightly. "About this?" I clarified, not wanting to scare him off. "Us." He didn't answer right away, then, "No, no one." I nodded like I understood, and in some ways, I did, but the answer still stung a little. There were moments, small ones, where cracks showed, like the time he got a call while we were in my kitchen. He didn't answer, but the name on his screen flashed long enough for me to catch it. Emily. His body tensed when he noticed me looking. He flipped the phone face down without a word. I didn't ask. And he didn't offer. After that, I started noticing the signs. The way he'd sometimes pull back mid-conversation, like a door slamming shut behind his eyes. Or how he'd linger, by the window before leaving, checking if anyone was watching. It wasn't shame. Not exactly. It was fear. Fear of being seen. Fear of what it might mean. Fear of unraveling whatever life he'd carefully constructed before he knocked on my door that first night. Still, he kept coming back. One evening, as we lay side by side on my bed, fully clothed, just sharing warmth and quiet, he whispered, "I don't know what this is, but I don't want it to stop." My chest tightened. Neither did I. But I was starting to realize that wanting something doesn't always make it simple. Because in the daylight, he was still Justin, the friendly, shirtless neighbor fixing his car in the driveway. The guy who waved at everyone, made jokes, played it cool. But in the quiet, in the hours the world didn't see, he was something else. Something softer, more real. Ours was a story written in shadows, in stolen moments and quiet laughter, in the way his hand lingered on mine a second too long. It was thrilling and terrifying and beautiful in its uncertainty. And I knew I was already in too deep. Because, while I was falling for him, part of me couldn't shake the feeling that he might still be choosing which version of himself he could live with. And I didn't know which version would win. I don't know what made me go over that night. Maybe it was the way Justin had kissed me the night before. Slow, like he was memorizing something. Or maybe it was the text he sent earlier. "Come by later if you're up." No emojis, no explanation. Just that. I didn't knock. I never had to anymore. His door was slightly ajar when I arrived, warm light spilling out into the hallway. I stepped inside and called out softly, Justin? He was in the kitchen, barefoot, pulling 2 glasses from the cabinet. He smiled when he saw me. Small, genuine. Hey, he said, like the world wasn't about to fall apart. Before I could answer, the front door swung open. Babe? A voice called cheerfully. I turned just in time to see her step inside. Shoulder-length hair, denim jacket, bright eyes. She looked like someone who laughed easily, someone who lit up a room without trying. And she did. Her eyes landed on me without hesitation. Oh, sorry. Didn't know we had company. Justin stiffened, and in that frozen second, I saw it. The flicker of panic behind his smile. Oh, this is... He started, voice faltering. I didn't breathe. This is my neighbor. He finished quickly. He lives next door. I was just giving him a hand with something. Neighbor. The word hit like a slap. Cold. Casual. True, in the worst possible way. Chloe, I would learn her name later, smiled politely and extended her hand. Nice to meet you. I've heard about you. You're the quiet guy, right? Nodded. Somehow. My throat was tight, but I managed a sound that resembled, yeah, that's me. She turned her attention back to Justin, already moving toward him, sliding her arm around his waist like she belonged there. Like she always had, and maybe she did. I stood there for a moment too long, waiting for an explanation, a sign, anything. But Justin wouldn't look at me. His eyes stayed fixed on the floor, his mouth tight. Something in me cracked. I should go, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. He didn't stop me. Didn't follow. Didn't say a word. I walked out into the hallway, chest burning, head spinning. The door clicked shut behind me, muffling Chloe's laughter in whatever world I'd never really been a part of. I made it back to my apartment, closed the door, and leaned against it, heart pounding. Neighbor. He had reduced everything we'd shared, every touch, every whispered word in the dark, to a convenient lie. Something small enough to hide behind. And I let him. I had let myself believe this could be real. But now, I knew better. It was almost midnight when I heard a soft knock on my door. I didn't want to open it, but I knew it was him. I always knew when it was him. Justin stood there in the hallway, hoodie pulled over his head, hands buried in the front pocket like a boy who'd been caught doing something wrong. I didn't want it to go like that, he said quietly. I didn't move, just looked at him, letting the silence weigh heavy between us. Can I come in? He asked. I stepped aside without answering. He slipped past me and stood in the middle of my living room, not knowing what to do with his hands, not looking at me. She's asleep, he said. She doesn't live with me or anything. She just sometimes stays over. That hurt more than I expected. I leaned against the wall, arms crossed. You didn't tell me you had a girlfriend. I didn't think I had to, he said, his voice low. I didn't think this, us, was going to happen. I didn't plan any of it. No, I said sharply. But you let it happen. And you liked it. You can't pretend you didn't. His jaw tightened. He looked up at me, eyes shadowed but raw. I'm not pretending. Then what are you doing? I asked, softer this time. Because I'm standing here trying to make sense of this, and it feels like I'm the only one being honest. He didn't answer. He just rubbed the back of his neck and exhaled like the weight of it all was finally too much. She doesn't know, he said, about any of this, about who I am. I don't even know who I am half the time. I stepped closer. You do. You just don't want to say it out loud. He looked up at me, and there it was. The fear, the guilt, the longing. It's easier to lie, he whispered. To her, to you, to myself. My voice shook. Then stop. Stop lying. Because I can't do this if I'm the only one willing to face it. He blinked fast, looked away, then back at me like he wanted to speak but couldn't find the words. I didn't move when he stepped forward. He didn't ask permission when he kissed me. It wasn't rushed or greedy. It was slow and quiet and filled, with things neither of us had the strength to say. His hand came to rest against my cheek, trembling slightly, like he was afraid I'd vanish if he let go. And when he pulled away, We just stood there, breathing the same air, lost in the same silence. "I'm sorry," he said, barely audible. I nodded. Me too. Outside, the world was still. Inside, everything had changed, and neither of us knew what came next. It was quiet for days. Justin didn't come by. No knocks on the door. No glances across the yard. Just silence. I tried to tell myself I was fine, that I had expected this, that maybe it had all been a brief, impossible moment. But the ache in my chest told a different story. Then one night, just after I'd turned off the lights, there was a knock. I opened the door, and there he was, hoodie again, hands in his pockets, like nothing and everything had changed. "I couldn't sleep," he said. "Can I come in?" I stepped aside. We didn't speak for a while. I sat on the couch. He stood at the window, looking out like he didn't know how to start. Then, finally, "I've never told anyone. Not a soul." I stayed quiet, letting him go at his own pace. "I've always played it safe," he said, voice tight. "Did what was expected, dated girls, smiled at family gatherings, said all the right things so nobody would ask the wrong ones." He turned to me slowly. "But then I met you." I swallowed hard. "You were quiet, kind, and somehow, just being around you felt easy, like I didn't have to fake it." He moved closer, sat down, but didn't touch me. At first I told myself it was nothing, just curiosity, a phase, whatever made it easier to sleep at night. But when I kissed you, that wasn't pretend. He looked at me now, really looked. "I'm scared of what people will say, of what it means. But I'm more scared of walking away from this, from you." I felt my chest tighten, not with pain this time, but something softer, something I hadn't let myself hope for. "I don't need you to have all the answers," I said gently. "I just need you to be honest, with me and with yourself." He nodded slowly. "I don't know how to do this." I smiled, a little, sadly. "Neither do I. But maybe we figure it out, together." A pause. Then his hand reached for mine, cautious, almost asking permission. I took it. No grand declarations, no promises we couldn't keep. Just a quiet understanding that whatever this was, it mattered, and maybe, just maybe, that was enough for now. I left Justin's place quietly that night. No words were exchanged at the door. Just a lingering glance, the echo of everything we didn't know how to say still hanging between us. I walked home with my hands in my pockets, heart heavy but somehow lighter than before. It hurt, but it also felt like something had cracked open, like the truth, finally, had room to breathe. The next morning, I woke to a message. "Can we talk?" Just that. Nothing more. But it was enough to make my pulse stutter. We met at the park that afternoon. It was sunny, quiet, kids in the distance, playing, someone jogging by with a golden retriever. Normal life all around us. The kind of place you couldn't hide in. And maybe that was the point. Justin was already sitting on a bench when I got there. No hoodie this time. Just jeans, a plain tee, and that familiar nervous energy he tried to mask, but never could. He stood when I approached. "Hey," he said, voice a little hoarse. "Hey." We sat side by side. For a while, we just watched the breeze move through the trees. Then he turned to me, eyes steady. "I don't have it all figured out," he began. "I'm not going to pretend I do. But I can't go back to pretending nothing happened. Because it did. And it meant something." My throat tightened. But I nodded, letting him continue. "I don't know how to explain this to other people yet. I'm not ready for all of that," he said, glancing down. "But I don't want to lose you either. I want to keep seeing you. Even if it's just us for now. I want it to be real." It wasn't a declaration. It wasn't a fairy tale. But it was honest. And that mattered more than anything. "I can live with that," I said quietly. as long as we're not hiding from ourselves. He smiled, small, a little crooked, but warm. Deal. We sat a little longer after that, just talking. About nothing, about everything. He asked about my favorite band. I told him about a childhood dog I still dream about sometimes. He told me his mom used to sing to him when he was sick, even when he was too old to admit it helped. The sun began to dip toward the horizon. Justin stood first, offering his hand. I took it. We walked out of the park side by side, our shoulders, brushing now and then, saying nothing about it. It wouldn't be easy. I knew that. But as we turned the corner toward home, I glanced at him, really looked, and felt it deep in my chest. This was the start of something. Maybe messy, maybe uncertain, but real. And for now, that was enough. What do you think Justin's next move should be? Will he find the courage to fully embrace who he is, or will the pressure of living two lives continue to weigh him down? Drop your thoughts below. I'd love to hear what you think happens next.